Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Fidelity, and welcome to a matchup discussion video. Now, this is the first of its kind. I've never done a video like this, but I feel like it's very good to talk about the kinks and interactions in matchups, as I do feel like I have a little bit of wisdom on Ed, as he's the character I devoted most of my time into. And I remember that a while ago, Jetstream, an Ed player, Ed YouTuber, he asked me for some tips on the Balrog matchups, and I answered him. But I feel like it'd be nice to create videos on some of the matchups in this game, so that Ed players, and even the opposing characters against Ed can create like valid defensive strategies, and so that they can have tangible things to look for in neutral and not just autopilot the things and play without thinking. So let's get started. So playing neutral against Balrog can be very finicky, as his rush punch is very annoying to deal with, and there's basically no range where Balrog can't do it. He practically can do it all the time, meaning that if you're going to be playing against Balrog, you need to dedicate most of your energy to dealing with this one move, because it's just that good. Nonetheless, when you play against Balrog, you need to make a decision. You need to play around two main strategies to beat the rush punch. The first one is to try and make it whiff. It's I wouldn't say it's very easy to do, but it's very self-explanatory. Whilst the rush punch has a lot of range, it has a bunch of recovery, and Ed's whiff punishment is kind of weak. However, he can reliably walk up crouch medium kick and land an upper or an up kick and land pretty good damage. So that's one way to deal with the rush punch. The other way is to walk forward and walk inside a range where the rush punch becomes negative, because the rush punch is -4 and Ed's jab is one of the better jabs in the game, and he can always combo into flicker and get pretty good damage there. So meaning when you're playing against Balrog, you need to make a decision and juggle these two options between A, trying to make a whiff, or B, walking inside the range where if he does rush punch, you'll punish him every time. The most important thing to note here is that you need to juggle these two strategies whilst playing against Balrog. It's very bad to stubbornly just go for one when the other one is just as viable, So if you're playing in a range and you're kind of far away, and you don't want to spend most of your time walking forward and trying to make him unsafe, at that point try and look for a whip punish and get good damage there. Inversely, if you're playing a pretty close range game, then don't be timid and keep playing that range, because Balrog is just as uncomfortable as you are. So when you're close to Balrog, just stay close to him and try and make the rush punch unsafe and punish him with a simple jab into flicker, or if it really fucks up, just a jab into the out kicks and get pretty good damage there. So now that you've shown the Balrog player that you know how to deal with the rush punch, they'll usually switch up their game plans and start introducing more normals into their gameplay. In particular, they're gonna start picking 3 normals: the stand heavy punch, the crouch medium punch, and the crouch medium kick. Now, good news is that all these normals play inside your flicker range. So once you see that Balrog enforce more normals into their gameplay, you can introduce the flicker into the neutral and make it very annoying for Balrog. And if they get hit, you can always have the EX for a good corner carry and good damage. But it comes with a fair problem. With the flicker, you can get whip punished and or stuffed, so you have to be careful. If you want to play a more safer game and you don't want to risk yourself doing a flicker, you could also play with stand medium kick, as it is a pretty underrated poke. And additionally, you could also use crouch medium punch, as it is another fantastic poke. They're both fairly fast, they don't have much recovery, so it's difficult to whiff punish, and they all play inside the range of Balrog's key pokes. So you have to always be careful about Balrog's rush punch, but if he starts using more of his normals, that kind of gives you more room to use basically all the tools that you normally want to be using, which would make your life a lot easier and get you some pretty good damage. Good thing to note here is that Ed doesn't really need to play with stand heavy punch and stand roundhouse. Like you can use it and you can get some pretty good crush counters here and there, but because Balrog's main normals kind of play inside Ed's mediums and flicker, you don't really need to risk using those big buttons and cashing out for big damage or big neutral situations on neutral. You can play it safe, keep it chill, and play it defensive. So again, you'll always be wary about the rush punch. You'll always try and look for the whip punishment or try and get inside the range where you can punish the rush punch. And once the Balrog switches up their gameplay and start introducing more of his normals, particularly the crouch medium punch or crouch medium kick or stand heavy punch, that's when Ed can start using his flicker, get some pretty good damage in there, and or start using the stand medium kick and crouch medium punch to kind of control the neutral. One final thing I'd like to discuss is the Fireball. Now, Ed's Fireball doesn't really have a place in this matchup. Balrog can always V-skill 1 through the Fireball. The only real use Ed's Fireball has is the first part that you can use it as a fake out in order to bait the Balrog into finishing the V-skill 1 follow-up. But you're kind of depending on the Balrog to make like a lazy decision. Like, it's not really a good thing to go for most of the time. You can use it sometimes, but it's not something that you should, build your whole game plan around it when playing this matchup. So you can use the Fireball, but if you want to use it, just use the first part as a fake out and try and see if the Balrog player truly can react to the Fireball, or if he just autopilots into using the V-skill 1 follow-up without even thinking. But outside of that, just try and not use the Fireball that much because it's very easy to beat with the V-skill, so just beware. Alright, beware. Alright, so the final thing I want to talk about in this matchup is the Vtrigger pick. What should you use in this matchup? Now, me personally, I like to use Vtrigger 1 because when it comes to Vtrigger 2, Balrog can reliably V-skill 1 through all the block string shenanigans. So most of the time it's not worth your time, so Balrog can just mash V-skill 1 and like go through all of Ed's Vtrigger 2 stuff. So because of that reason, I'd rather just go with Vtrigger 1. However, there's some kinks that's very important to know when using Vtrigger 1, as Balrog has a lot of ways to deal with and or stop the Vtrigger outright. So the first thing that you need to know is that the activation is not free. Balrog has one of the better ways to stop the activation raw, since he can always react to the activation with EX rush punch and destroy your whole round in activation. So if you want to activate, be sure you're doing it from a far enough range that you won't get blown up by the rush punch. Additionally, where you're using the Vtrigger 1 and it's active, you have to keep in mind that Balrog, he doesn't really have any ways to deal with the projectile, as tap will fail to go through the Vtrigger 1. So will his V-skill 1. However, Balrog's V-reversal is pretty damn good at dealing with the Vtrigger 1, because even if he does the V-reversal and it lands on block or on hit, he'll be far away enough, or he'll push himself forward enough that he'll run away from the V-trigger, and the V-trigger will straight up whiff and it'll keep going behind him. So whenever you use the V-trigger and you have it out, always keep in mind about Balrog's V-reversal. The good thing about this is that the V-reversal is reactable. It's not a very easy reaction, but you can always reliably react to it. So when you have it out, you just keep in mind that Balrog's gonna want to V-reversal, because if you let him, he'll get away from the V-trigger for free. So just keep in mind that he can do that and just grab him every time. Or if you want to hard read him, which I don't really recommend because you kind of lose most of your pressure, you can neutral jump, and punish him that way. You get a pretty good damage. If you do get the read on him, you get, basically a round finisher, essentially, or like a comeback starter. But again, it's a hard read. It's not a very safe thing to do. If it fails, you're kind of donezo. However, if it works, you're OD. So I guess that's the plus side. But yeah, most of the time you just want to react with a V-reversal and just throw him. One key situation is that if you do throw the V-reversal, the throw situation afterwards doesn't push Balrog into the V-trigger ball. So be careful about what you want to do afterwards. Normally, you want to do your regular throw Oki situation mid-screen, but so don't assume that the ball is gonna hit him and just dash up willy-nilly. You can kind of get away with it sometimes because the Balrog players will still be stunned. Since most Balrogs, I assume they think the ball is still gonna hit them, so they'll still be stunned by you dashing in their face. But you know, once the Balrog recognizes that they're not in range, they're gonna blow you up and check that dash most of the time. So be careful what you do if you do react to the V-reversal with the throw. Well, that's gonna conclude all the discussion topics I wanted to talk about. Hopefully, y'all learned something and have better defensive strategies when it comes to fighting Balrog. With that being said, I hope you guys take care of yourselves, and peace.